Thank you so much. In fact, the dropouts happened yesterday, and that's why we had to, the list needed to be updated. So we have equally great speakers to join us, and they are scientific talents of high caliber. So hopefully we'll be able to get a lot more from the scientists here. So thank you so much. I'll start the process in the way that we do a panel. It'll be always great to have your insights. Generally, you know, it's best when everyone actually gets going on conversations. Not very long introductions, but if you have concise questions, please, you know, feel free to bring those up. So thank you so much. Basically, you know, why we chose this subject on vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics, as I mentioned at the outset, the whole world looks like, you know, evolving now. You know, we had a level where about 10, 15 years, it was going in a linear way. It was just growing in size with a little bit of incremental innovation. But now we are actually seeing a surge in all of these three categories. You know, CAR-T therapies, it provides a completely new opportunity, you know, for patients, for doctors. A lot of research is happening on that. Diagnostics, Dr. Shah will be able to discuss on that. Ma'am will talk about vaccines and how we have been able to get a lot more from the pandemic. We haven't heard, you know, scientists are normally shy, they don't discuss, but hopefully we'll get some more insights today. And of course, diagnostics coming from Mr. Sanjiv Gupta. So starting with you, Dr. Shah. I still remember, sir, was it 97, 98, or probably around 2000 when I actually visited your lab in Worli. And it was an eye-opener to me. It was like massive, and he had all the equipments. He was much younger, and the ambitions were really high, you know, of becoming a global player in the diagnostic sector. So, you know, in brief, you want to narrate the whole story, sir. Metropolis has actually come of age. And how has been the journey, and what do you have to say for the future?
Well, actually, I started in 81, like any other pathologist. I started with a very, very small laboratory, which was in a 10 by 10 square foot kitchen area. Because it was not possible to get a bigger place at that time. I didn't have the means. And when I started, one thing which I had made sure was that I didn't want to go into any unethical practices, do absolute things in a straightforward way. I was not very good at networking. I was not very good at making friends. So one of the pathologists whom I went and talked to, senior pathologist, he said, what are you going to do? How are you going to make your practice? I said, well, I don't know how I'm going to do, but these three things I'm not going to do. So he told me, okay, I think in that case, I'll find you selling chana at chapati in another 3 or 4 years. And that is how it started. But I think I found innovative. I won't go into details here what I did, but I found innovative way of doing things. And we were able to be #1 laboratory in Bombay. That time, Dr. Amin's lab was a very big laboratory in Bombay. So I managed to be #1 lab in 10 years. We were one of the top labs in India in 20 years by 2000. And by 2010, we were already there in about 13 countries. We became international lab. So I think that was a journey. And I think we are probably the only lab which has got a presence internationally in we are 13 countries we are present now in full-fledged establishment. So that actually, in a nutshell, is the journey.
Right. We'll come back in the next round on where exactly do you think is the industry headed. Now, Sanjiv sir, you know, you probably did what many people will not dare to do, having worked in top-notch leadership roles in global companies. And then I remember a call that we had, and he said, let's do something much more concrete for India. And that was the start of your journey in BSV from a completely, I can't say unknown, but it was not so well known exactly what's going on with BSV, excepting for some people who were really aggressive journalists and will go and meet Bharat Daftari and know exactly what's happening in those labs. Now you've really taken it to another level. The traction is seen very clearly. What gave you that impetus, sir? I was searching for preparing this. You have like a spectrum of technology on cell processing, a whole lot of things that biotechnology companies would like to see.
So thanks, Vikas, for calling me. And very quickly, I think there are 3 levels of reasons why we should do this for India. Reason number 1 is, I think we lost the chemistry cycle. We have no choice but not to lose the biology cycle.
Yes.
Yeah, so there is a need for high quality biotech, world-class companies in India. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do this was because of this. That how do we build a world-class biotech company in India which the world will respect? That is one. Second aspect is that there are several diseases which get neglected or don't get enough attention. So how do we ensure that many of those which are important, we work around those? Third is 50% of the population of this world is women, but there is no women's health company.
Yep.
Yeah, so can we build a very strong women's health company? So these were the 3 basic reasons why we went into this, and I said I will do it for a specific reason. And obviously, when you want to build biotech companies, you have to build platforms, different platforms. I think first time we started learning about platforms was in COVID, when people talked about the COVID vaccine platforms.
Yes.
Yeah? But it is important to start much before that we need to build platforms. So now, you're right that we have built probably India's best recombinant technology platform. We are building in-house capability of building cell lines. We are building the best antibody platform that India has seen. So all these things are happening because there has to be energy behind it, there has to be investment behind it, and more importantly, you have to collect a pool of scientists who are dedicated and want to deliver those.
Yes.
They are not so good at project management, so you have to give the cover of project management to it and ensure that deliveries are met in a particular way and help them through the difficult periods because there will be failures. So that's the premise on which we started doing this, because and we have reached some way. We are very happy. I think that things have moved. I think just to end, let me tell you that we now are the only Indian company to have got the first patented ingrown biologic out in the market.
Wow.
Which is now in the Indian market for some time. It is a recombinant version of anti-D immunoglobulin, which is used for Rh negative women. But important thing is WHO for the first time has recognized the first biologic from India in a non-proprietary INN has been given to us, which is a great victory for India, not for the company as much as a victory for India. So it's moving. We will see much more, but it's moving.
That's the change that we are actually seeing, and that's the reason why we said, re-pharma. Companies are actually coming out of those comfort zones and putting money in hardcore innovation. And it requires, leaders like you who actually dare to dream. Because normally, it's also about, low capabilities of spending. You have just that much of pocket. And Pfizer did a deal with Seattle Genetics, now Seagen, $43 billion. I mean, that's a massive amount for us to even think about it. So, it's an evolution journey. So, yeah, right. Ma'am, for you to take the stage on, the learnings from the pandemic, and scientists are most comfortable in their labs, but if you can actually share some of your thoughts on how can we be more prepared now? We have been lucky enough that it didn't really drastically impact India the way it has with some other countries. So from a very clear scientific perspective, Where do you think we have been able to score an edge?
Thank you very much, and I would like to thank you and Aditi. In the middle of the night, we were fixing up my visit today here for the panel discussion, and I'll first say two things. First and foremost, I'm not representing ICMR here. My views are very personal as a scientist, as an immunologist. And the second thing is I may leave the panel discussion in the middle because I have a prior commitment, but I never wanted to decline this event, which was orchestrated by ET and facilitated by Dr. Shekhar Mande. Since he was not able to come, he had sent a personal request. So now coming to your question, so vaccines are nothing new to us, right? We know the Edward Jenner story that we all had read in our school books, right? So we have been working on development of vaccines. We have BCG, which is a very age-old vaccine. We have all been immunized with right from your birth. And then we have other vaccine platforms also. The only thing that has changed is that the vaccine development used to be very, very prolonged process, and a lot of safety concerns were always built into it, since it is going to be, addressed to masses. It is not going to be addressed to a subset of the population. It will be for masses. So the safety concern for any vaccine was the foremost, and for that it used to take a very prolonged route of evaluation. And COVID pandemic has taught us that whenever there is such kind of emergencies, our pharma sector, our scientific community, our drug authorities, everyone, including the health sector and the administration from the government side, which was the most important, and split-second decisions were taken, and that's how we had Indian population getting vaccinated by our own vaccine, and that too with lot of criticism globally. That the testings have not been done, there are flaws in the vaccines, and we don't know what it is going to do. And definitely all those concerns were appropriate. But the thing is, you cannot answer them in a short interval of time. So when you have short interval of time, you have to take risks. And that risk to benefit ratio is what helps you to take such decisions. And that's what Indian government also did. Our Prime Minister took that leadership role, and now we are globally recognized that we saved our population. So what more I can say about it, that as you said, we have 4 vaccine platforms, which I guess pandemic has taught all of us. So we have the Pfizer and Moderna mRNA platforms, which were the new things that came up, and then we have our own Covaxin, and which is the attenuated or inactivated form of the virus, along with first human adjuvant that we have used, TLR7 agonist. And then we have, of course, protein-based vaccines, Novavax. And then we also have vaccines coming, which is adenovirus-based. So we have our Covishield, right? So these are the 4 platforms. And HIV, although we do not have a successful vaccine for HIV, but HIV has taught us a lot about vaccines against viruses. And so much so that we were prepared to handle this pandemic. Our infrastructure was in place because of HIV, and the testing facilities were in place. Definitely we gathered up more momentum because of pandemic, but we had the manpower, trained manpower, skilled manpower, which could handle this. Because you can buy machines, you cannot train manpower in such a short time. So we, did have things in place to take this leap, as you rightly said. Yeah.
Ma'am, I'll go to the next question right away because you will be short of time and you may have to leave. So one of the points that you mentioned about discussions here was about the case control cohorts that can inform us who are more susceptible for severe and chronic infection during a pandemic and should be vaccinated first, and who are more likely to be asymptomatic carriers of the infection, as they are silent spreaders of the infection. If you can tell us a little more about this, because this sounds pretty new. How do we kind of segregate and get the right people to get vaccinated? This was something that was not known before.
Sure. So I will make certain points, and I would like to, say that identification of the high-risk subset is always very important. Vaccination is for masses, but when you have emergencies, you have to choose, what is our target population that should be vaccinated first. So here what we did was we first went for our medical support systems, our healthcare workers, that they are very important. So this was a strategy which was based on, who is needed more at this time. But we can always have strategies based on the host immune response. Now, let me tell you that vaccines can be successful only when they raise an immune response in you. And your immune response is governed by several factors, including the microbiome that you have. So in this kind of scenario, as our health secretary, Dr. Naveen had mentioned, Shri Naveenji has mentioned that we need artificial intelligence and machine learning to make us understand and predict, which are the people who are going to be good responders to the vaccine, people who are not going to respond to this particular vaccine platform. That is number one. Number two, when we are measuring the immune response, what people were noticing, neutralizing antibodies, the antibody level. Yes. So the antibodies are bound to go up and down. That is an inbuilt system, because if it doesn't happen, if your antibodies don't go down, you will be an autoimmune patient very soon. So antibodies have to come and go. What we need to map is our immune response, the cellular immune response, the cytotoxic T cell response, the helper T cell response, the memory B cell response, the follicular helper response, and their neutralizing capabilities. And when we did that, we understood that Covaxin is as good as, a natural infection. Mm-hmm. And this paper has come out in 2022 from India, from our own labs at National Institute of Immunology and at THSTI. Dr. Shinjini Bhatnagar and Dr. Nimesh Gupta together have published this work in Nature Microbiology, which is one of the top journals. And what they have shown is that Covaxin response, the cellular immune response, the follicular helper response, the B cell response, including the antibodies, were at par with the natural infection. So our vaccine is really, really good. We have established it, and it has taken 2 years, but we could not wait for these 2 years, right? Yes. So that was the risk taken by our government, because it is a traditional vaccine platform that we relied upon. So the next thing that I want to say is, we think that people who are asymptomatic, they are very, very good because, they are healthy and they are not getting affected, they are not getting hospitalized. But here is the problem for public health. These are the silent spreaders for us. So it is very, very important to, genotype, find out what are their HLA types, what are, protecting them from, having a severe infection, but they are also making them silent spreaders. So such silent spreaders have to be identified early on and should be vaccinated so that they don't become silent spreaders. So that is what public health, teaches you how to handle that. So these are some of the important points that I wanted to make.
Right. Wonderful, wonderful to have your insights, ma'am. In fact, we'll go to the next round and talk about mRNA vaccine platform, which has been so ambitiously spoken about by global leaders, including Bill Gates. Sir, over to you on diagnostics. Around the same time, as vaccines evolved, so did diagnostics, and a lot of issues came up. From there to now, what have been the learnings? You have been wearing many hats on the industry side, on the consulting side, also as a scientist. So your thoughts on that?
So thank you very much for having me here. I think diagnostics has not been receiving many platforms. This is one among with this kind of panelists and audience. There are a couple of flavor items I would like to give to this audience and also to the fellow panelists. Thanks to COVID-19 and the strong lights that the diagnostics is in relevance today. Okay, so we are seen, right? That's there. And I have a strong connection with Metropolis, Bharat Serums, and Dr. Taruna. Metropolis because every 4th month I go and get tested myself. And Bharat Serums because I have worked for EDV for 2 years. And there have been crisscross between EDV and Bharat Serums. I am fully aware about the work which Dr. Sanjiv talked about. And I'm a consultant to Dr. Taruna for one of the projects which he is working on a recombinant molecule which will become a molecule of therapeutics in days to come. Now coming to diagnostics. Many people knew about diagnostics, blood test as the most. But fact of the matter is that COVID has given 3 aspects to the diagnostics of the world and especially to India. One is the resilience. More than the innovation during the COVID time on diagnostics, it has been a response time and the resilience of the diagnostic industry, which was very good in India. Many people didn't know that our diagnostic industry was working so nicely in the country. I think Dr. Shah will agree that there have been hundreds of different types of parameters which were regularly available in India. The only thing which happened was that industry came up together with the full support from government and with a complete resilience. We came up with first with the molecular diagnostics, RT-PCR, followed by the rapid antigen test, and along with it more academic type of test like CRISPR test, one of the best technology but which never saw the light of the day because of technical issues. And I will share with you that the CRISPR based COVID diagnostics never came to the light because it only had the stability of 3 months. So 3 months stability cannot really support the supply chain. Big issue on the technical side, but that's how it happens. The second confusion many people carry is that we did a lot of innovation on the diagnostic side during COVID times. No, that's a misnomer. We did not. We still depend, and we depended on a lot of incoming materials from China and a lot of European countries. But of late, after the second round of COVID wave, the tides have been turned around. A lot of raw materials for RT-PCR test and other things have become available in India now. That's a plus sign. And government has taken a very, very strong multi-ministry approach to do this. When it comes to diagnostics on rapid side, many projects were sanctioned by Government of India to make recombinant N protein, an S protein of the COVID-19. By the time these proteins came, the COVID was over. The second thing is many projects were approved by ICMR and BIRAC to come out with rapid tests at a lot of IITs. By the time those tests came, the COVID was over. The show was stolen by the companies which existed before, and some of the pharma companies which utilized the opportunity of business, and they developed the capacity in India. That's how it has actually happened. More than the innovation, it's resilience of the system which worked in the benefit of the country. There are more than 200 rapid test and RT-PCR companies or tests approved by ICMR. There have been regulatory confusion all around that ICMR is a regulatory body. They are not. CDSCO and state licensing authorities continue to be the regulatory bodies. This I make very clear on many platforms. What we are now looking at is AI-based resurgence into the diagnostics. It started with COVID again, but one of the latest thing which has been approved in India is AI-based diagnosis of tuberculosis based on X-ray data. A company in Bombay, Cure.ai, has come up with this. I've been a short time consultant with them, and they have joined their hands with my labs now, and probably it will get commercialized faster. And that's where I think Dr. Taruna also have some data where ABPA lung pictures get overlapped with TB and create confusion. I would request her to connect with Cure AI and bring this into the fold. There are many, many diagnostic things based on AI happening. I have a client in Bangalore who work on a ballistic cardiology technology. I don't know how many people have heard it, but this was also new to me. There is a sensor which is lying under your bed, and it's sending information to a centralized monitoring system where the nurses and the doctors know what's happening to your parameters. It's amazing technology, and I'm happy that I'm associated as a consultant to that company, and many more such technologies are showing up. And we're looking forward that India gets a lot of lead in this to start with.
Fantastic. I think, one of the stories that have not been told in the right way or in the scale that is needed is the emergence of point-of-care devices and the huge boom of startups that's happening in this country. I think a lot of these young technology people are collaborating. And of course, I have heard about Cure.ai doing some phenomenal work. In fact, they have got some funding also from investors.
Just a small point,
sure.
just for everyone's consumption, and it's a good feel-good factor. During COVID-19, a lot of testing has been done for CRP. I'm sure many of you are aware. But many of you are not aware that India is the largest supplier of C-reactive protein for calibrators and control to the world. And India also is one of the largest suppliers of anti-CRP goat antibodies to the diagnostic companies in the world. Many people wouldn't know this. This has been there. It's been there for 20 years now. And country leads into this, and it's growing in leaps and bounds.
Our industry doesn't speak so much to the media. I think that should happen more. Okay. Right, sir. Your turn. And in fact, this is probably, while I say this, I think CAR-T has been taking the center stage across the globe. And salutes to your endeavor, Dr. Paruwar, and a whole bunch of scientists, Dr. Narula. I know, in fact, even while we speak here, Dr. Narula and Dr. Hasmukh Jain are making presentations at Tata Memorial. So it's a very busy group, and rightfully so. From what I read, your trials will be going into second stage of trials now, or probably it's already ongoing. And we are probably seeing a commercialization of your CAR-T therapies by next year. Just tell us your story, sir. What actually got you going? It's a lot of wherewithal that is needed. And media has been a little cynical about things. That's part of our nature. We try to see exactly what's going wrong. But it really gives me a lot of pride of feeling that, we have a CAR-T therapy happening right here indigenously. Just your thoughts.
Yeah. No, thanks a lot, Vikas. So I'll just start from the beginning and, with a small saying that it takes, as the saying goes, it takes a whole village to raise a child. And I think somewhere that's true in our story as well, right? So if I just give a small capsule, a scientist trained at Hanover, doing his postdoctoral in Harvard, leaves his his future career that could have been, and says, I have to do something back for the country, right? Comes back, works at IIT as a professor. IIT gives that independence, if I can say so, and that environment to pursue his research at a time when CAR-T was not even well known even in US. It was still a very niche. In 2014, 2015, when it was still a very niche technology in US, right? Within the IIT framework, support from ICMR, grants from Tata Trusts, right? Different types of, people pooling in, who also probably didn't fully understand what the research goal is, but somehow plodded along, gave that initial support. That research came along, a patent got generated out of that. And when I first met Dr. Paruwar, he says, I have the patent, I don't know what to do with it now, right? So then we said, okay, let's put a commercial structure around it. We went, spoke to a lot of VCs. Most VCs in India didn't even have a biotech desk at that point in time, so they didn't even know how to evaluate us. So we finally went to a few people. Some people finally had the risk appetite. Again, something new in India, which was probably not there, say, even a decade ago. So we found the risk capital, still limited, but still that has evolved. So a lot of these things came together for us to be able to put, and finally the regulatory support, the regulatory framework got evolved. And with all of that put together, we are now at least, we can say, a platform emerging to provide the cutting edge cell and gene therapy, therapies in India, right? We are still far behind from US and China, right? But at least we put a mark on the map. We are not just a distribution company or a sales company. We are a true innovation, or at least we aspire to be a true innovation company. Our first product, which is a CD19, which is for refractory and relapse leukemia lymphoma, that's in phase 2 trial as we speak. Dr. Gaurav Narula and Dr. Hasmukh Jain are the lead PIs for pediatric and adult. It's a multi-site trial now. So Dinanath Mangeshkar, couple in Hyderabad, Rajiv Gandhi in Delhi, and we sort of will multiply that. And the agenda is to commercialize it by next year, with all the support that we are getting from the regulatory, teams as well. And then the agenda is that how do we then use this success as a platform to then bring the new innovation that is happening in CAR-T, and not just using our proprietary platform using lentiviral, but also what is happening in other platforms, including CRISPR, right? Right now we use the autologous platform, which is a personalized therapy, but also a lot of innovation happening in allogenic therapy. So these will be the sort of themes that will emerge over the next 10 years, and how we can be a participant, and how can India be a platform of innovation in these new technologies, right? Both for India, but we also feel for the low and middle income countries. Just to give you a snapshot, we are still not commercial. We are still essentially a startup. And yet we had the honor of hosting the foreign minister of Mexico last week at our. So somebody took the effort. He was at the G20 meeting in Delhi. He took the effort to come to Mumbai, visit our office actually. And that showed us Mexico just next door to US, struggling with the technology because it's sort of, I wouldn't say monopolized, but still limited in its availability to restricted advanced geographies, advanced economies. So how can we also not just do what we have done in the pharma sector in general, not just be a base. HIV is a great example. Not only what we did for India, but what we've done for the other low and middle income countries. Can we do the same with these emerging technologies, not only for India, but make it a base for Africa, South America, LMIC countries, emerging middle income countries, how we can do that. So that's sort of our history and our ambition at this point in time. Yeah, so that's basically it. Yeah.
No, so for the benefit of our audience here, a point which distinguishes our indigenous CAR-T technology is while in the US, it seems it's about $1 million for the therapy. I think, sir, your enterprise is looking at somewhere around 30 lakhs. Yeah.
So I think our
kind of,
yes, you're right. So I think that is something that is, again, a very Indian thing, that how can we do more with less? And I think that sort of drove us. So what you're saying is right. What is today available in US for about almost $500,000, and a full patient cost, fully loaded patient cost to about $1 million, including hospitalization cost. We hope to bring that at 1/10 the cost. And our research goal still remains, how do we bring it even lower, right? And if the ecosystem grows along with us, we think that over the next 5 years, we can probably bring this even further down. So
the significant part of it is probably the vectors, right? So the cell generation part, yes. Which takes yes. the bulk of your costs.
Yes. So the complex IP or the complex science is around the vector. Right now, we use the lentiviral platform, and we are, I think, the only company right now who actually makes our own lentiviral vector. We are looking how do we scale this up so that we produce this not only for our own for our own consumption, but also for the wider consumption. So that's an important drug substance, if you can say. And then, of course, the T-cell manipulation, T-cell modification, expansion, and the whole CAR-T cell processes that are downstream processes as well. So
that's the part where I think, Sanjiv sir, your organization has also cracked, right? I mean, to have the entire spectrum of technology under one roof.
Yeah, so it's important because if you don't have the technology under one roof, you struggle to connect and source. But I think what you've heard also tells us one more thing, and which is important, Vikas, is that there is a new India emerging which is getting missed by everybody and especially by media. I'll tell you the reason why. I think the media is damn focused on the big generic companies and trying to understand what are they doing.
So that's the reason we didn't get any of those.
Yeah, correct. And it's fine, I think it's not, I'm not even saying that it is right or wrong, yeah. The new India that is emerging is people and companies which are heavily involved in research. There are the government funding and government technology support which is coming in a big way, like what ICMR is doing and all. It's so much under the radar what BIRAC, ICMR and DBT is doing that people miss all this activity that is happening. Huge activity is happening.
Very true.
A lot of activity. There are entrepreneurs who are building CAR-T technology kind of thing, stuff everywhere. There are also, and look, as a company, we have also encouraged a lot of startups to come to us and talk to us, and what we tell them is that if you have something interesting, we remove your commercial risk, sign off the commercial risk with us. We will commercialize. You do what you are good at. So we are trying to look at a lot of these ecosystems and realize that very interesting ideas are coming in India. These are going to be not India-specific things, but these are going to be world beaters. And these are all world-beating ideas.
Yes, yes.
And those ideas are so interesting. I'm sure there are going to be huge amount of failures. Yeah? This is not an easy stuff. Yeah? Healthcare, Google has formed a healthcare company thrice and closed it down. So Google I think a very senior Google person once admitted to me that whatever they claim of being whatever great company they are, health is not a thing which they are able to crack. Yeah. So to that extent, healthcare is very different. Yeah. And this emerging India is probably going to be of world-class standard.
Indeed.
And that is something that we have to look forward to. Is it going to happen today, tomorrow? Probably not. But in 10 years' time, India's healthcare industry of this part will look very, very different. And therefore, it is important to house technologies right now as much as you can within one place, because you can do a lot of things. But on the other hand, because there are agencies in India like BIRAC or other places, where you can go and approach them and say, look, this part of testing we are unable to do. Yes. I'll tell you, IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, the IISc in Bangalore, there are so many institutes which are ready to test out your stuff which you are not able to do yourself. No. We are doing a lot of stuff with these companies. For example, we have been after government to say that regionalize anti-snake venoms. Yes. Because the snakes are different in every area. And you're losing people and people are dying. So, but then IIT Delhi, the IISc Bangalore, they have come up with partnerships. So there is a lot more happening in this space, and this is something that we all should start noticing in a big way.
Sure. Sir, your thoughts resonate with Dr. K. Vijay Raghavan, who actually gave a lecture yesterday at Dr. Reddy's memory. And it was amazing. I was watching it, and he actually mentioned that, while we probably were lagging on small molecules, on biotechnology, and on new thrust on technology-driven therapies, this is the opportunity that India has actually grabbed. And truly so, probably it will take a decade, and it will probably see a lot of failures, but I think a lot of those great companies will evolve.
My point is proven of moving from large companies to doing this.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so now I know why you actually jumped in at the right time. That's the vision. So,
may I just add to the point which Sir said? You are doing it, that you are taking startups to you. I'll also tell you that I work very closely with Tata Steel Limited. And Tata Steel Limited has opened up the same kind of influx. And every month I'm talking to one or the other institutions on their behalf. And one more important thing which I will share with everyone is that globally there is a very simple molecule called hydroxyapatite, which is used for coating the implants. And Tata Steel has set their eyes that they will revolutionize this in next 3 years. And they're looking at $2 billion, kind of revenue from it. And I'm happy that I'm a quality and regulatory consultant for this project. Wow. And we have already cracked up the process. Again, IISc Bangalore is involved into it. IIT Kharagpur is involved into it, like that, And suddenly we are now scaling up the capacity. In next 3 years, we want to reach huge capacities. And just imagine, that's a backward integration. While we are going for high-end technologies, the backward integration is a resilience which happened in diagnostics. And that's what is also going to happen in the area of medical devices.
Yeah, there is this company called Applied something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're just trying to quote lowest form of molecule. Yeah, which can change delivery systems of drugs. And one of the labs is in, I think, that belt, Airoli-Thane belt somewhere, in that area. So much is happening.
Yeah. No, so, something that was actually missing a couple of years ago was the linkages between the academia, the investors, and the scientists. I think that chain has been completed now. And that part is very clearly seen. I was talking to someone from Quadria Capital, and they are actually looking at startups and, where innovation can be kind of incubated. So
I think if I just add to that, I think the critical mass of the ecosystem, in our own journey of last 4 years, we've seen that we've achieved the critical mass of ecosystem. And maybe COVID has helped a little bit along the way. So it's not exploded yet, as you were also saying, maybe the media, and because it's not exploded, maybe the media has not fully covered it. But I think the critical mass of biotech innovation ecosystem has happened. And I think the question now is, how do we scale it up? How does the industry come together? Industry, academia, investors. Market is already there.
Sure.
Right? So I think it's just a question of that ecosystem. We as Indians, we truly have a way to innovate at a low cost. And I think that's where probably what has happened in the IT sector 20 years ago, where we did innovation and services at a lower fraction of a cost in US. And I think that is set up right now for that market to be captured also, where a lot of CDMO services, research services in biotech, we can probably get a slice of that because we can do it same quality, better, but at 1/10 the cost. Yeah.
Right. The screen is flashing times up, and I always run into this big problem because the discussion is always so engrossing. But at this stage, I have already borrowed 10 minutes from Ivan. So anyone from the audience wants to share some thoughts? Yeah. Can a mic reach her? Or if it is, is there a mic here around? Or, I think, yeah.
Hello, good morning everyone. First of all, thank you so much for such a wonderful insight and understanding about everything starting from diagnostics to vaccines to how it is R&D and logistics and everything put together. I would like to take this opportunity to thank each one of you for your greatest contribution to the human lives in unprecedented situation of COVID-19. Not only you, but the team who has supported you also. So thanks a lot for that contribution. My question is to Sanjiv Navangul, because there are two Sanjivs on the forum. The question is, on one hand, the entire world was in the fear and the wave of, say, uncertainty, volatility, complexity, ambiguity, all those things are happening. And on the other hand, you and your team has relentlessly worked towards getting that vaccine to every human being possible. What was the driving force and how did you manage it when emotionally entire world is at the different tangent of fear and all that?
I think this is a good question, but I will only answer it in a very simple way. My friend Ashish Sandorkar, who is the India's WTO representative in Gennova, he's written a wonderful book, Braving the Viral Storm. Yeah, it's available on I think Amazon or everywhere, I think it's available. I would tell you to read the story of the vaccine and the India fight on the COVID. So it's probably one of the finest chronicles on pandemic that has been written right now in the world, I would say. And please read, you will find all that. Because look, the country was, healthcare industry gives you the passion to, and everybody in healthcare industry, there are so many people who contributed, that healthcare industry gives you the passion to understand that you're saving lives every day. And that is so different from other industries that you will find people getting up and going to work even in most difficult circumstances. Yeah. So if you look at all the manufacturing plants in India, you know, in a COVID time, the workers were there. So there is that certain difference, that mindset difference that healthcare industry has. We get a lot of criticism, you know, things go wrong here and there, and we should admit those and say they are bad things. They should not happen. But what we miss is the 99% of the good story, where millions and millions of lives are getting every day saved because of this industry. And that is a big driving force and motivation for all people working in this industry, which you will always find very different from other industries. So it's not a question of how these people delivered, but the question of how, you know, this industry makes you feel differently.
Right. Okay. I think I'll move to the next round, given that we have just 6 minutes. Sir, now that you have actually grown and developed massive scale, being among the top diagnostic chains in the country, now we are seeing probably the competitive intensity is very high for you, because there are no low standards to which a diagnostic chain or a diagnostic shop can actually get in. Oh, you okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. This was really a pleasure to have you, and thanks for making time. This was really wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So while, you know, that is already happening on one side, you also have the challenge of aggregators. You know, people are like, you know, getting everything at home. How do you see that moving? And now you have a big splash coming from Reliance about genomic sequencing becoming, you know, one of the things that will probably reach everyone. Just your perspectives on exactly where are things headed on the diagnostic side.
I think before I go to that, there is one point which I would like to mention.
Sure.
That, you know, so far, we used to always look up to the Western world for providing the ultimate care, whether it's a treatment, whether it's a diagnostics, anything. Anything we say, okay, is not done in India means you can get it done in USA. I think like everything else what they mentioned, this trend also is reversing now. See, for example, today we have a test menu of 4,500 variety of tests. And if I compare that with the biggest laboratory in the world, it's called Quest, which is $22 billion. Their test menu is 4,800. So there are about 700 tests which we do, they don't do. And today, we get from institutions world over, the samples actually come to us for doing because they're not available there. Like we get from Johns Hopkins, we get from Cleveland, we get from Mayo Clinic, and number of institutions across. So I think like everything else here also the trend is changing slowly. Okay, we are catching up with that. What is the segment? Correct, I got it. Yeah, now the point is now the whole trend in this diagnostics is changing. Now you have got this digital healthcare people who are coming in, like Tata MG and Reliance and this Pharma and a whole lot of people, you know, who have come in. But I think it is not going to affect us in any way. Because I'll tell you why. Because the kind of care which these people are providing are first and foremost in preventive healthcare. So what they do is the preventive healthcare testing, which is not really our bread and butter otherwise. Second thing is, these people, by the time they catch up and start doing specialized things, is going to take time. So there are three kind of tests which are available. One is preventive healthcare, second is a chronic disease, and third is a acute. Now the chronic disease means what I mean about routine like diabetes and anemia and things like these for which you have to care. So laboratories which are going to be relying upon these two, the healthcare, preventive healthcare and chronic disease will get affected, definitely. But labs like ours, which are more into acute disease, where, you know, when the patient has a disease, doctor asks for tests and we are doing, those kind of labs are not going to likely to get affected. One good thing which has come out of this is, for the preventive healthcare, for which there was virtually no market earlier. Nobody did tests for preventive. Now actually that whole market is opening up in a big way. So I think on the whole, this is going to benefit everybody, and it's going to benefit us also, because it is opening a new avenue for us, which was earlier not existing. So I think on the whole, it's a good development. But I'll tell you one thing, most of these new things which come, they usually have a tendency to die down, because healthcare, and particularly diagnostics, is not something which you just start some new concept and it picks up. It doesn't, because this requires a kind of a brand equity which is built up after 25, 30, 40 years of continuous working and people developing their faith in you. It basically goes by the faith. So these things don't come. I remember about 10, 15 years back, the whole lot of pharma companies jumped into diagnostics. About 10, 15 years back. They all jumped into it. Dr. Reddy's, a whole lot of big ones. Lupin, a whole lot of people. They all jumped in. Today, if you see, all of them are out. None of them survived for more than 3, 4, 5 years. So I think even this digital healthcare thing which has come and everybody is jumping in left, right, and center, according to me, this trend is going to die down in another 4 or 5 years. Maybe 1 or 2 will survive, but all the rest will be closing off. So I think these new trends, they keep coming. People try out new things. But where it comes to providing acute healthcare, I think there is still no substitute for the people who are tried and tested. So they will continue to have it.
I think Dr. Reddy's did a deal with an Australian company, Grifols or something like that. Yeah.
Actually, I did it.
Achha, okay.
I was part of Dr. Reddy's, and I was actually managing director of 2 companies there in Dr. Reddy's. And I am the one who did that deal with the Grifols. But after the deal was done, I left the company.
Okay.
But the point is that, yeah, they did and it failed.
Yeah.
The SRL did a deal with the specialty labs. They failed.
Yeah.
They went up. Quest came into India and they ran the lab for 7 years. They failed. There is a German company called MDS.
Yeah.
They came, they failed. So I umpteen number of examples are there. All foreigners, they came and failed. They don't survive in these diagnostics.
Your inherent strength shows, the confidence is very clear in the way you actually described the competitive landscape.
No, because it has taken us 30, 40 years to develop this position. I mean, people who come, they cannot replace you in 1 year.
Yeah,
it's not possible.
Yeah.
It is not a product which can be done. It's a services. Services takes a long time to establish, a long time for it to get displaced also.
Right, right. Very confident, statements, and it's so encouraging to see this. Because, normally you see that, there is so much of competition and, there is just so much of push coming, on your bottom line. So, over to you again, Shirish. Where do you think will be the actual pricing when it comes to your therapies? I remember a discussion I had with Dr. Rajendra Badwe, and he said, even 30 lakhs will be very difficult. How many of you will be able to afford 30 lakhs?
Yeah, so our pricing position is somewhere around 30 to 35 lakhs, right? Our intention is to keep it as, I'll just try to summarize it in 30 seconds. So our intention is to keep it as low as possible. Probably with scale and with time, maybe it comes down as this thing. But whatever we've spoken to them in market, right? I don't think 30 lakhs of a life-saving drug is really a showstopper. In COVIDs, we know even for how much premiums were paid, people spend 10, 20 lakhs just to get admitted for an oxygen. So we underestimate the depth of the Indian market. It's still not good enough because we may still not be able to reach everybody in the who's in need. Right. But little bit with insurance support, little bit with government support, little bit of private money, I think we should still be able to cater to a very large population with that kind of pricing.
Okay. All right. Right. And I think with as the technology scales, I think it will definitely have an impact on the pricing. Sure.
Also, let's not forget that if we are looking for a $5 billion economy, our per capita income will double in 3 to 5 years time. So the discretionary spend capability will be very different 5 years down the road, just like how it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. And for sure, it will be better than not going for a crowdfunding or a lottery system, which many of the companies are doing right now. And those are definitely not the right models. So, Anyways, thank you so much. I mean, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I've come out learning, like always, with so many more insights. And thanks so much, audiences, for being so good and for listening to us patiently. Thank you so much again. Thanks.